Nick Chubb has officially signed with the Texans. What does that mean for Joe Mixon's dynasty value? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. And joining me today, as always, is Michael Fabiano. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. Check out all of his great work over on SI. Fabs, let's talk about some big news that happened over the weekend. Nick Chubb signing with the Houston Texans. Let's first talk about the Chubb part of it. Do you think this is a good fit for Chubb? And does he have any dynasty value left?
This is an awful fit all the way around. If we're talking about pure fantasy football, Nick Chubb is a 29-year-old running back who was maybe arguably the best running back in the league a few years back. But after that severe knee injury and then, of course, foot injury, now we're looking at a guy who sort of fits into the mold of that, 28, 29-year-old running back who starts to break down.
Yeah.
The problem is that he's kind of the fly in the ointment in terms of Joe Mixon's value. Now, Nick Chubb doesn't have very much dynasty value, folks.
No.
I mean, right now, he's a committee back at best. So his days of being elite are certainly in the rearview mirror. But I think the bigger issue is how, Marcus, he affects Joe Mixon.
So, yeah, Nick Chubb, he'll turn 30 during the season. He had not only the big injury, in 2023, but also a major knee injury in college. So he's going to be an old 30, right? He also has a bunch of touches on his body. You're right. Nick Chubb doesn't do anything for me in fantasy or dynasty leagues. It's all about Joe Mixon, who right now on Dynasty League football being drafted as RB 22 ahead of players like Tyrone Tracy, David Montgomery, Alvin Kamara. And Fabs, let's also not forget they traded a future third-round pick for Woody Marks in the 2025 draft. So it's clear that the Texans have been thinking about reshaping this backfield. Is this a sign that Joe Mixon might not be long for Houston?
And maybe not long for productive fantasy seasons either. Now, last year, if you remember, in the first half of the season, he was nails. He was 6th in fantasy points among running backs over the first 13 weeks. Believe it or not, but only Saquon Barkley had a higher points per game average than Joe Mixon in that time. And then, Marcus, the wheels fell off, man. I mean, he was the RB 43 in the final 5 weeks of the season. He scored single digits 3 times. And now he's heading into his age 29 season. And there's huge health questions because if you're keeping up with what's going on at OTAs, well, Joe Mixon's seen in a walking boot. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on with his health. He's got some sort of lower leg injury. We didn't hear about any sort of surgeries that happened, but he didn't participate in Houston's OTAs. And I'm not sure if this is going to affect his status for training camp either. Again, it's a fly in the ointment. It's a mess now because now you've got Nick Chubb. You mentioned Woody Marks. Now, Woody Marks would have potentially been one of those like late round sleeper type of players that you want to get in a redraft. And now maybe not so much because Chubb's certainly going to be second on the depth chart. But this makes me worry about Joe Mixon's health. And Joe Mixon has been a very good fantasy back, maybe an underrated fantasy back. Not elite, but he's up there. And I wonder if his time as that high-end RB2, low-end RB1 are going to be in the rearview mirror here very quick. He may give us one more good season, and he would have to hurdle the Nick Chubb obstacle, now the potential health obstacle. So I was worried about Mixon before Chubb signed because he's in a walking boot. And now I'm even more concerned. Why, Marcus? Because I think the Texans might be concerned. This is a move that I don't think they needed to make unless they thought Joe Mixon may not be able to handle the big workload that he has in the past.
So I love Nick Chubb, one of my favorite players over the last decade or so. So what I'm about to say, I promise it's not coming from a place of hate or anything like that. Are we sure that Nick Chubb is going to be the number 2 running back on the roster? And even further, are we sure that he's even going to make the roster? They gave him a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. That doesn't seem like it's a guarantee that he's on this team. And if Woody Marks looks explosive, or if Dameon Pierce has a 4th-year breakout, or whatever, they have other running backs on the roster. So what if Joe Mixon is healthy? Woody Marks shows enough. Nick Chubb obviously doesn't going to play any on special teams. I'm just not convinced a signing in June for a running back necessarily means he's going to be on this team.
And that's certainly within the realm of possibility. Nick Chubb is a physical specimen. We all know that. We've all seen the video of him in the weight room doing 600 or 700 pound squats.
Whatever it is.
The guy's like a maniac.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's within the realm of possibility. But right now, if you ask me, gun to my head, I'm thinking it's Joe Mixon 1, Nick Chubb 2, Woody Marks 3 on the depth chart.
I think the thing is we just don't want any of these running backs as of right now. The offensive line in Houston looks like a mess again this year. We'll see who ends up emerging, but this is always our concern with older running backs like Joe Mixon is. It's not necessarily how available will they be. I mean, that's obviously a concern, but when they get nicked up like Joe Mixon did last year, they have a hard time recovering and getting back to 100%. And when they're playing hurt or injured, you see a major drop in efficiency. And that's what happened to Joe Mixon last year. Remember, he was in the 2017 draft. Think about some of the other running backs, Fabs, in that draft, like Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook. Think about how beat up those guys are, how ineffective they've been over the last couple of years. Joe Mixon has a lot of wear and tear on his body. Yep. We shouldn't be surprised if this is the year that the wheels completely fall off.
I'm right on board with you. And I hate to say it, because Joe Mixon as a player, to me, has been very underrated from a fantasy perspective. He's always been a very good player, whether it's in Cincinnati or obviously more recently in Houston. But unfortunately, at this age, when you start to hear about injuries and teams bolstering a backfield behind such an incumbent starter, you start to get a little worried.
Yeah, and it's never great when your star running back is in a walking boot in June. Like, that's obviously, did he hurt it during the season? He's still not recovered. Did he do it in the off season? Just all sorts of red flags are going up about this Texans backfield that we'll be continuing to monitor over the next couple months. Fabs, let's talk about Cleveland's backfield, because there's always been the sense that the Browns were going to bring back Nick Chubb maybe after the draft, and he was going to play a role, and that they weren't going to let him leave. Well, they did, and now they're going to be relying on 2 rookies. We'll take a deep dive into that backfield next. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments and spending in one place, so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. My family has been using Monarch Money for 6 or 7 months now, and we were realizing how much money we were wasting on trivial stuff like dining out, coffee runs, football cards, whatever it is. But now we are budgeting smarter and we are saving more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Fabs, let's talk about Nick Chubb's former team, the Cleveland Browns. It's pretty clear they wanted to reinvent this backfield. Jerome Ford's still in the roster, but they drafted not 1, but 2 running backs this year. Quinshon Judkins early on round 2, and then Dylan Sampson, a running back that a lot of people thought could be a top 75 pick. They got him in round 4. What should we make of this backfield going forward?
Well, first off, we know Kevin Stefanski's offenses are running back friendly because of what we saw from Nick Chubb, right? During the time when he was there under Stefanski's watch. And Jerome Ford was inconsistent, but when he had an opportunity to be the lead guy, I mean, there were some games where he put up some really good fantasy numbers. Judkins, I thought it was going to be Trevion Henderson, who they picked, and obviously they like Judkins a little bit more. What he ran, a 4.48 40 at the combine. Yeah. So, he's strong. He's got a little giddy up. I would be surprised if you didn't see 250 plus touches in this offense. And I really think based on where you're getting him, especially in redrafts, he could be a bargain. People in redrafts are taking him as a flex. I think he could be a very good RB2, both in redraft and dynasty, of course. Now, Dylan Sampson could be a little bit of a hiccup there, but I think that where they drafted him, as you mentioned, they drafted Judkins very high in the second round, that they're going to utilize him. And I believe Jerome Ford is in the last year of his contract. Yes, so this is Quinshon Judkins' backfield. And I'm really excited to see what he can do in Cleveland's offense.
So there's been this popular belief on, let's say, Twitter, that a lot of people think that Quinshon Judkins is a good back, but he's on one of the league's worst offenses, which I understand, behind a shaky offensive line. And yeah, he might get 220 touches, but the touchdown totals are likely to be low. And that he's just not going to be highly efficient in this offense. And I push back on that a little bit, Fabs, because we've seen multiple running backs be good in this offense, whether it was Jerome Ford last year, Kareem Hunt kind of at the end of his career in Cleveland, then obviously Nick Chubb. Kevin Stefanski's back calling plays. This is his offense. It's going to be under center. I understand the quarterback issues that are going on and how that could, impact these running backs. But I just think Quinshon Judkins is really good, and I want to have him on my fantasy team because I do trust Kevin Stefanski to design a really good rushing attack.
100% on board with you. And, obviously in Dynasty, he's going to be a very high draft pick. If you're talking about rookie only in established leagues and startups, listen, youth, skill set, and opportunity, man. And he's got them all.
And where do you think he's being drafted in rookie drafts? Let's say non-super flex rookie drafts. Where do you think he's being drafted?
In a rookie only, I mean, he's going first round.
Yeah, of course.
First round, I would probably guess somewhere in the top 6 to 8 picks.
Yeah, he's right at pick 6 right now. He's behind Trevion Henderson, who went a couple picks behind him in the draft, but he is significantly ahead of RJ Harvey. About 6 overall. If I have the 6th pick in my draft and I can take Judkins, I love that. I think that's a home run selection.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, youth, talent. The team believes in him because look where they drafted him and look who they drafted him ahead of. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I would take Trevion Henderson ahead of Quinshon Judkins in a rookie only. I'd go the other way.
Yeah, because I mean, Trevion Henderson has the same issues in New England, right? Like Ramondre Stevenson signed a long-term contract last offseason. He's obviously going to get a big workload. Henderson's going to be the change of pace guy, where I think we can count on Judkins' carry total, touch total to be just higher week in and week out. Mm-hmm. And it's not like New England's got an awesome offensive line either. Like they've got some major issues. We'll see how their number 4 overall pick, Will Campbell, performs, but it's not like that's the most fantasy rich environment either.
It's not. In fact, I think to me, the most intriguing player in New England from a redraft and startup league is Drake May.
Yeah.
Their wide receivers don't do anything for me. And at some point in the program, we'll talk about, Kyle Williams and why Patriots wide receivers typically don't do well when they are drafted by the team, which is a very strange historical trend. But I mean, Stephon Diggs is over the hill. Hunter Henry's he's okay. Or I mean, we're talking he's dynasty fine. Though. I mean, he's whatever. There's not a whole heck of a lot to like. And so when you look at that offense might not put up a lot of points and not potentially put Henderson in a position to score points. And Ramondre Stevenson is in the prime of his career.
I know.
And if Stevenson was actually more durable, Marcus, I feel like maybe they wouldn't have gone with Henderson. And I think that's the problem. But at the end of the day, this could be a 50-50, 60-40. I don't see that in Cleveland with Quinshon.
Yeah, just real quick on the Browns before we move on. Dylan Sampson, he's extremely young, 20 years old. He's an undersized running back, 5'8", 200 pounds. I just think he's going to end up being My guess, Fabs, is that Jerome Ford ends up being the change of pace guy this year, and that Dylan Sampson probably steps into that role in 2026.
Right. Agreed.
But I don't view Sampson as like a threat to Judkins at all.
I don't either. Nope. I don't either. Judkins is the only back of his size and type on that roster.
Yeah, that's why I said he's going to get a lot of touches. I do think Sampson's interesting from like a long-term stash because he does have the speed. He's got the athleticism. And if anything were to happen to Judkins, he's probably in line for a lot of touches, but standalone value, I don't quite see it. All right, let's talk about a couple of veterans, including 2 receivers that could potentially have a major impact on dynasty leagues this year. We will talk about that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, we saved this last segment to be the longest because we've got 3 veterans who are currently free agents that could have a big impact on your dynasty league. And let's start with J.K. Dobbins, probably the best running back available in free agency right now that Nick Chubb is signed. I think we're going to disagree a little bit here, but how much of an impact do you think Dobbins could have this year?
It depends on where he lands, but a big one. I mean, listen, I get the injury issues. I understand that. I mean, that's front and center. But he's just 26. He's coming off the best season of his career. He averaged almost 15 points per game. He played 13 games last season. And like, no matter where he goes, Marcus, I feel like he's going to kind of be a fantasy value bomb into the backfield. And the Broncos hosted him last week, man. I mean, if he goes to Denver, forget about it. I mean, Harvey's going to see his value implode. Now, maybe not dynasty, but certainly in redraft. And also keep in mind that the Chargers did apply that unrestricted free agent tender on Dobbins like back in April. So he's going to count towards the NFL compensatory draft pick rule if he signs with another team before July 21st, which is the deadline because that's the first day of training camp. I'm surprised, and I think that might have something to do with the fact that he hasn't been snatched up yet because, come on, I'd rather have Nick Chubb or J.K. Dobbins. I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins. Some of the free agent running backs that signed, I'd rather have J.K. Dobbins. I understand the injury issues, but when this kid is right, and for the most part, he was last season, he's a very good player, a very, very good player. So I would be surprised if he's not on a roster at the start of training camp someplace, and no matter where he goes, maybe it's Denver, maybe it's Chicago, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of teams that could use a running back. He is going to negatively impact the projected starters value.
All right. So yeah, this is where we disagree because I'm kind of all out on J.K. Dobbins. Our team, the Cowboys, need a running back, and I don't want them to bring in J.K. Dobbins. I would rather have.
You don't think J.K. Dobbins is better and more explosive than what we have right now? I mean, he is. I mean, listen, I'm just, and the fact that he's prone to injuries and he's had some pretty big ones means that you're not going to have to pay a whole heck of a lot. Like if J.K. Dobbins signs a 1-year contract, Marcus, someplace for around the same money as Javonte Williams signed with Dallas, I'm going to be pissed.
He probably will.
I just don't like Javonte Williams, and I don't know what. Again, that's just
fine.
Maybe I have a soft spot for him.
I don't like Javonte Williams either, but let me read you the injury history for J.K. Dobbins. 2021, he had a hamstring tear. 2021 in August, he tore his LCL, meniscus, and his ACL. 2023, he tore his Achilles. 2024, he had a severe MCL sprain that cost him the final 4 games of the year. This is somebody that's had a significant amount of injuries just in the last couple of years of his career. And he's been kind of propped up by the fact that he's played in a Greg Roman offense for almost all of his NFL career. And we know that almost any running back, succeeds in a Greg Roman offense. He's played with Lamar Jackson. He's played with Justin Herbert. He's played with Jim and John Harbaugh. Like, he's been in these awesome situations. And the fact that both of these teams are like, no, we're good. We're going to go out and sign Najee freaking Harris to play ahead of J.K. Dobbins tells me that they don't think J.K. Dobbins has a lot left.
But
So I'm out.
Najee is more of a Greg Roman type running back than JK. JK's not really like a Greg Roman type running back. He likes those big Frank Gore type of dudes. And JK didn't fit the bill. JK just was cheap. He was available. And not for nothing, he played 13 games last year out of 17, and he averaged almost 15 points per game. JK Dobbins was a locked in RB2 last season when he was healthy. And for the most part, he was healthy. And that's why I think taking a chance on him, a younger player, a versatile player. And if you get 10 to 14 games from him, great, especially on the team. So, for example, the Broncos, I would hate that because RJ Harvey is there, and you've got McLaughlin there, and you've got Estime there, and you don't want another running back who's going to eat away at potential touches. But Chicago, why wouldn't they look at him? DeAndre Swift is okay. I mean, he's all right. I thought I like
Quinshon Johnson better than J.K. Dobbins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, I still would be surprised at a position where it's hard to find playmakers at this point. And who knows? Maybe we hope nobody gets hurt, but maybe somebody gets hurt in camp and the preseason, and he's brought in. I'd be really surprised if he's not on a roster. In fact, in the redraft mock drafts that I've been doing, and actually I've already done a couple of real redrafts, I've been grabbing J.K. Dobbins with one of my last 2 or 3 picks just in case.
Yeah, I'm just out on J.K. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's get to some other guys that are free agents. Let's start with Keenan Allen, who caught a lot of passes for not a lot of yards last year with the Bears as a slot receiver. He'll be 33. What do you think he has left?
I mean, he averaged over 12 points per game last year. And he certainly obviously wasn't, the most targeted guy. Remember this too. In 2023, he was bananas good, right? Bananas good. Injuries have been somewhat of an issue for him. And I know that he's going to be 33, like you said, but I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use him. I mean, Pittsburgh could really use him.
I do think that's the first team that came to my mind. I do think he's a good fit with Metcalf.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that would be phenomenal. I would love that. And I don't think that would hurt, DK Metcalf significantly either. The Jets could use him. Who's their number 2 wide receiver? Alan Lazard. The Browns could use him. I think there's other teams too, like Arizona. Off the top of my head, I mean the Raiders. I guess I don't think the Saints. He played for Kellen Moore in LA for a year, but I mean the Saints are kind of packed, but they also have some injury-prone wide receivers. So I'm surprised he's not already inked a deal someplace, but I think he will.
I think of the 3 players we're going to talk about, Keenan Allen's the one that I think has the best chance to be fantasy relevant in 2025, because if a team signs him, a team will, right? He's just going to be a plug and play slot receiver. He doesn't give you any special teams value. You're bringing him in to catch passes in the middle of the field, and you're probably going to get a bunch of targets. I have a feeling that he's going to sign with one of the teams you mentioned that has a veteran quarterback that just wants a reliable option. And actually, I think Pittsburgh makes the most sense because Metcalf is your outside X receiver who makes plays down the field. Outside of that, it's like Roman Wilson, who has 0 career catches. Robert Woods, who I thought was done about 3 years ago. Ben Skoranek. They could use somebody that just moves the chains on third down. So I do think he has some decent value. And I wouldn't be shocked to see him sign in the next month or so. But Fabs, I also wouldn't be surprised if he just waits until after training camp, just to kind of see which situation is the best for me, where are injuries happening, where can I make sure I'm locked into getting some work. Don't be surprised if he waits this thing out a little bit.
Yeah, and a guy who's been in the league as long as he has probably isn't real up for training camp.
No, I wouldn't want to be,
so,
right? Let me have my July and August to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right, last one. A former Dallas Cowboy great, Amari Cooper. Great might be a strong word, but I really enjoyed the Amari
great.
Cooper.
What do you mean great?
I enjoyed the Amari Cooper experience in Dallas. We actually had a report not that long ago that the Cowboys were interested in bringing Amari Cooper back. But since then, they've traded for George Pickens, so they filled that wide receiver 2 need. What do you think happens with Amari Cooper? Because we saw him, it was just 2023. He was unbelievable. He was awesome for Cleveland. What's going on?
I don't know what happened last year. Honestly, when he went to Buffalo, I thought that was a good move from a fantasy perspective, it did not end up being a fruitful move. He averaged 7.7 points per game last year. That was the lowest of his entire career in a full season. He's younger than Keenan Allen. He's entering his age 31 season. And, some of the same teams that I mentioned with Keenan, I'll mention with Amari Cooper. I mean, could Pittsburgh be interested? Could the Jets be interested? Could the Saints be interested? He played for Kellen Moore in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. It's the same teams. I don't know about going back to the Raiders, but I mean, the Raiders wide receiver depth is not. Let's put it this way. Superior. They have a few guys that they have Jacoby Myers, and then they have some guys they're hoping can produce. But at the end of the day, unfortunately, Amari Cooper's best fantasy days are certainly behind him. But he could potentially, if he goes to the right team, maybe put a bit of a hurdle in front of a younger player who, we might project to see a few more targets on that particular team right now.
So I happen to know a little bit about like where Amari would like to play. And again, this is all general.
Well, you just get on the phone and be like, Amari,
well, I mean,
Marcus Mosher here, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. No. Amari would like to play after spending the last 2 years in Cleveland and Buffalo. Amari would like to play in a warmer weather city, preferably somewhere where he can play in a dome or on, field turf. If you look at it, Amari's like splits throughout his career, it's unbelievable how much better he is playing indoors than playing outside. Like it's honestly crazy. So then you start to narrow it down. Like, where are some spots where he could land?
New Orleans.
What if Houston's young receivers aren't ready yet? Could they add him in there? Jacksonville, if they wanted to add another receiver. I don't know. I think the options are going to be pretty limited for Amari. The other thing is, I don't know how big of a rush Amari is to even get back on the field. He's always been a very interesting person and player, and I wonder if he's okay not signing before week 1.
100%. And he could end up being a guy that, signs sometime in season. Yeah. I still find it hard to believe that he's going to go out like this. Right. Like, I mean,
I tend to agree. He's too good of a player to do that.
Yeah. I mean, he was a really good pro. Again, now at this age, he's probably not going to be what he was, but to see him just, go out like this, similar to Aaron Rodgers, maybe on a lesser degree. But Amari is too good of a player to go out like he did. I mean, he really went out with a whimper last year in Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, again, 2023, he had 1,250 yards playing with, I think, 5 different quarterbacks in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, they had, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like literally, it was PJ Walker and Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Like, there was a bunch of different names, and he was productive with all those guys. And this is somebody who he's over 10,000 career receiving yards. He's only 31. Like, that's not that old. He's probably past the point. Not probably. He's past the point where he's a number 1 receiver. But can he be a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3? Absolutely. Like, not for fantasy, but I'm saying like in real life. Yes, absolutely. I'm going to be really interested to see what Amari Cooper does over the next couple months.
Yeah, agreed. And will he make a fantasy impact? Probably not.
Probably not. But he's the one I trust the least to make a fantasy impact.
But right. But can he potentially impact someone else's production? That's certainly a possibility.
All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the show on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Make sure you follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.